Hello everybody, I'm going to do a review on this LVLP spray gun I picked up from Harbor Freight. This is item number 61455. These retail for $18.99. I applied a 25% off coupon, so I got it for $14.24 plus tax. Not too bad. The reason I purchased this gun is it is supposed to shoot latex. You know, obviously you may need to thin it a bit, but that's why I purchased it. Now I have a Graco airless that I use and it works great, but for intricate little projects, bookcases, nooks and crannies, it's very difficult to use an airless for that. To change your fan you need to change the tip, but you really don't have much control on the volume of paint. So I'm going to try this one out, and shooting with an HVLP, you know, you have to thin it to where it's almost water, or you have to spit and sputter it. And you could try Floetrol. I saw one video where a gentleman was using a windshield wiper fluid. I thought that was pretty interesting. I just haven't played around with it yet, but he claims it works great. But I'm going to try this, and the price was right. I have done a couple modifications to it, and I will show them as we go. But we need to tear it down, because when you get a spray gun or something like that, it'll be packed in oil, so you really need to take it apart and give it a good cleaning. So I'm going to go ahead and show the disassembly process in detail here, and then describe, you know, how to clean it, and then show the modifications, and then I'm going to go out and try it. It's nighttime now, so I'll be shooting via light, so I won't really be able to show it, but I'll try to show the results on some scrap. I'm just going to shoot it on some scrap. So first things first. Take the cup off of it. It holds 33 ounces according to the label on the side. Now this is an LVLP. This is low volume, low pressure, not an HVLP, high volume, low pressure. Basically what that means is you might be able to drive this with a very small compressor, because it doesn't need a whole lot of volume of air. And that's a benefit for folks who don't have big compressors. You know, and you may need to stop from time to time and let your compressor build up, depending on how much trigger time you've got going on. But that's irrelevant to me, but that's just an FYI. Put some mineral spirits in your cup, slosh it around, get in there with a brush, clean it, very hot water, and blow it out with air. If you've got one of these, you've already got a compressor. So solvent, hot water, air. That's the formula. Let's get into the gun. I'm going to go ahead and pull the fan piece out. Just screw it out. It's kind of long-winded. And there's an O-ring on it. Same deal. Solvent, hot water, air. Now there's two ways that you can take out the needle, which runs through here. You can take the front off. Not two ways you can take it out, but two proper methods. Let me be clear on that. So let's just take this apart here. There's a rubber seal with a series of holes. Don't lose that. Here's your nozzle. The needle is seated here. If you take this off first, always squeeze the trigger before you spin this off, or you can damage the needle and seat right here. Probably the easiest way for people where you don't really have to think about it is just take the needle out first. This is another little long-winded deal. The threads on this are kind of garbage. I was going to clean them up with a die, but this is like a 12 by 1 pitch metric, and all my dies, I don't have one. There'll be a little spring behind it. To get it out the back, simply pull the trigger once, and then you can pull out the needle. To take the nozzle off, you will need a 14mm wrench, and there is a little washer, a little seal right here that does not come out, or it did not come out on mine, but if it does, just make sure you don't lose that. Clean this with mineral spirits. Clean all these parts with mineral spirits. super hot water, and then dry them off with air. There is another gasket right in here. Mine is now kind of staying in by itself, but when I first got it, it was packed with oil and it just fell out. Make sure you take that out, clean it as well as everything in here. Just clean, clean, clean. Get this thing clean. Now, one of the problems I felt when I first pulled this out of the box is when I pulled the trigger, it was really gritty. And I couldn't quite figure out what was going on there until I pulled it off, and then I discovered it. That's one modification that I'm going to make, and I'm going to make another modification for all of this right here. So now this trigger feels really, really nice, really smooth. So clean all your parts, and then we'll get into assembly in a little bit. But let's go ahead and go into the modifications. I'm going to pull the trigger off of it. You can use a little screwdriver, a pick. There's an E-clip right here. Get in there and pick that out. Being careful not to let it fly everywhere. Got it most of the way off. I'm hoping this shows up on the camera. So there's the clip, and then push this pin out. I'm going to go ahead and show the first mod that I did. What I discovered was on the back of this stamping right here, these points were really sharp at the front, and then there was some flash hanging off right here. And what that was doing when I pulled the trigger is this piece right here is aluminum, and it was just chewing it away very badly. So I went ahead and took that out and cleaned it up. But first thing I would do, it's very simple. I took a small needle file and I rounded those tips off, those corners right there, rounded them off with a needle file, as well as rounded off these two sides. I hope you can see what I'm speaking of. Just rounded those over and took the sharp edges away. And then I came in with a stick sander. These things are great. I've got 4 of them of various grits. And just kind of polished that edge up with this. And that took care of that problem. So that's the first modification. We're going to start going back together with this, so I'll go ahead and bring in the second modification. The trigger itself has a lot of slop between it and the casting. So I went to the hardware store and just picked up 2 number 12 stainless steel washers, plain and simple. So they're kind of difficult to put in here. I may need to take it out of the camera view, but obviously you're going to start with one side with a washer, and then this is the tricky one. You got to slide it down in here, but you can do it. And there we go. And then I need to put the E-clip back on. So I'll get it started in the groove. And I'm just going to come in with a pair of needle nose and pinch it across and hope I don't lose it. There we go. So now that trigger is very, very, very nice. It feels very smooth, and it wasn't before. Alright, so you should have everything clean. We'll go back together. It's just the reverse of what we've done. I'm going to go ahead and start with the needle. I'm sorry, the nozzle. Give it a good snug with the wrench. Easy enough. I'll go ahead and put this gasket on. Now there's a shoulder on that gasket. It's going to go in. There we go. On spray guns, these are usually connected together. They're not on this one. There we go. Go ahead and stick in the needle. Push it all the way in. put the spring on, and then the adjustment screw. And this is your fluid adjustment here. Now just to start with, I push it all the way in, and then I'll screw this in until I feel it start to push the trigger back. And that's about where full open would be. And then here's the fan adjustment. You've got to push it in a little bit to get the O-ring started, and then just simply screw it in. So I'll just screw it in for now, and that would be a pattern of like a round pattern, and then when you back it out, it will fan out and make a fan pattern. Now this right here is supposed to be an air adjustment, and I've only played with this with water, and it's not a real fair test with water, obviously, because it's very, very runny. But I didn't find too much that this thing even did. You know, it certainly doesn't cut the air off completely like an LVLP that has it right here. It still lets air through. Now that may be why, because it's a pressure pot and it always needs some degree. You know, you guys can be the judge of that. So anyway, that's pretty much how you take it apart, put it back together. I would use that procedure for cleaning. If you wanted to really do an in-depth cleaning, take it apart just like that and put it back together. Make sure your gasket's in there, and then screw on your cup. Now you will need to supply your own air fitting here, regulator, whatever you want to use. This is the regulator I have, and I bought these. I have two of them. I purchased them at Harbor Freight a long time ago, and they work really well, but they don't sell these anymore. They have a different style. This is a true regulator. When you back this off, it will relieve the pressure out of it. You don't have to squeeze the trigger to let the pressure go off. They have another one that they showed there at the store, and I looked at it, but it didn't look like a true regulator to me. It just looked like an air valve. So I didn't bother picking up another one. I'm just repurposing this off one of my other guns. You know, so obviously it would go on here. Now I'm at the stage now where I'm going to go ahead and do some testing with it. You know, I'm not a pro painter, and this is certainly not a pro gun, but if I can get my jobs to come out fairly well shooting latex through this, then it's a heck of a lot better than a paint and brush and a roller. So I'll see what happens. Okay, well here's a quick shot of my test piece. I hope this shows up. I just shot a piece of pine, raw scrap. It was not sanded, it was not primed or prepped in any way. And you might be able to tell that you can see some fibers that are standing up there, but look past those. The finish itself is nice and flat. This is a satin paint that I painted here. It turned out really well. I was really surprised with this test. Alright, well it's been a day or so later since I started this review, and I've been using it quite a bit, painting some chairs. And I'm completely satisfied with it. It's a little bit fickle on the adjustments. You kind of have to get it dialed in, as well as get your paint the proper consistency. You know, I'm just going to say I thin mine out about 10%, but you know, all paints may be different, so you'll have to play with that. But I'll give you the rundown on how I at least have it set up and the way I was using it, and it was working really well for me. First and foremost, I was shooting at 25 pounds, and that was enough air pressure to atomize the paint properly to where it laid on nice. So to start with, this air control valve right here, I just have it all the way out. I never did anything with it other than that. So I just left that open, but with it cranked all the way out, keep in mind it will retain pressure in this pot. So don't just go to take it off, because you can have a paint bomb. So once you are finished using the gun, just roll that in a little bit, and there's a air bleed hole right here. It'll bleed the pressure off, so you won't have any problems. So basically what I did was start with the fan all the way in, the fan adjustment right here, and start with the fluid control all the way in, and then that would actually put you out as a round pattern. And then while testing and squeezing, start opening up and testing with your fluid control until you get a round pattern. Then start fanning your pattern out to width, however wide you want it, and you'll have to go back and forth testing to get the right combination of these. And they're both fairly temperamental. The fluid control more so than the fan control. A little bit does a lot, you know, so it's really sensitive in that regard, but you can dial it in and it does shoot nice. Overspray, very minimal. Nothing like an airless. Nothing like an airless. So I am absolutely completely satisfied with it, especially for the cost, and it does a pretty darn good job for the money. So if you guys pick one of these up, I'd highly recommend a regulator so you can govern your air control right here, taper it off, bring it up, play around with it and the consistency of the paint that you're shooting on some test pieces until you get familiar with all the adjustments, and it should work like a dream. So I've got a little bit of painting left to do. I was painting 2 chairs, so I've had quite a bit of trigger time on it, and then I'll clean it up and store it for the next time. Hope this helps in some way. Thanks for watching, and good luck.